Welcome everyone. Tad Hargrave from Marketing for Hippies here with my dear colleague Jeffrey Van Dyke. Now, Jeffrey and I have known each other for over 10 years now, I would say.
Yeah,
And
like 15.
15,
Yeah,
don't say that. Don't say
I know.
that. But we've known each other for a long time now, and a real dear colleague. And just to give props to Jeffrey in terms of the way he's shaped my work, he was the one from whom I first heard the phrase, our deepest wounds are a doorway to our truest niche, or something like that. And I remember uh, how it landed for me. And then that really shaped a lot of the work that I've done around niching since. Uh, Jeffrey does an incredible amount of work around messaging, what I would call point of view marketing, and sort of articulating this what it is that we have to share with the world. Jeffrey and I also share a real, I think, kinship around the ethics in marketing. I've shared stories about Jeffrey, though you may not have known it was him, about when I went to one workshop and they said they did the pitch on the Saturday night and then said, no, you can't buy tonight. Go sleep on it if you want to buy it, but you're not allowed to buy it tonight. And slowing down the sale. Anyways, there's just a number of these things where there's overlap, but of course Jeffrey does it in his own beautiful way. I've learned a lot about niching from Jeffrey, and my understanding of the word niche is it comes from the French verb nicher, which means to make a nest. And so this is what we're really doing, is we're trying to make this home for ourselves in the world. And that my functional definition of niche is the it's what you want to be known for. Yeah, our shared colleague Suzanne Falter Barnes, she would define platform as that, it's like, what is this? What is it you want to be known for in the world? And if we're lucky, we get known for anything. And if we're lucky, it's a good thing. It's almost always just one thing that we get known for. And so it's the role in the community that we want to be known for. That's the way I define niche. And the challenge is, of course, people can get I was just interviewed the other day, Jeffrey, like this, and somebody said, the system really rewards us for shitty behavior. And I said, well,
For what, Ted?
for shitty, unethical.
Oh, right. Yeah. Did y'all just lose audio? We lost audio from you, Ted. Wait, you left us on shitty, unethical behavior.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Right. That we get rewarded for this kind of, I swore and then Zoom chastised me. But it's not us that's being rewarded. The persona gets rewarded. The mask we wear gets rewarded, but we go starving. Our soul is not rewarded by this at all. And that our soul, this idea that our soul, we come here with a kind of work that only we can do. Yeah. We're the only one that can play this role in the community. Nobody else can play it. And when we play that role, and we do get rewarded for that in ways that actually do feed us, as opposed to being a cog in somebody else's machine. So this is the theme of today, is this work that only we can do. So Jeffrey, without any further ado, so good to have you here. Over to you.
Yeah, thanks, man. Good to be here. Hi, everybody. Good to see you. I, Tad and I both do probably a fair amount of these kind of conversations, but I will say I have this welling up in my heart being here with you, because I feel like I already know who you are if you're here with Tad. Tad said a lot of lovely things. Here's what I'd say. Of all the people, I've been doing this for almost 20 years. Of everyone I've ever met in this market, I feel like Tad and I have the most synergy in terms of our shared point of view and kind of way into this work. We hadn't talked in years, and recently we kind of got back in touch. We got on the phone, and it was like an hour and a half went by, and we're like, oh, we just started, one of those conversations. So anyway, so I'm delighted to be here, Tad. Thanks for having me. Great to be here with you all. Here is, I want to start with why I feel like I'm on the planet and why you might be on the planet. And then we'll get into this work only you can do. Years ago, so I do all this work around wounds. I do a lot of work in marketing and especially messaging. And I do a lot of work with what I consider kind of my spiritual guidance. And I want to just define that for a minute, because that's not been in the marketing for this conversation. Because people are like, what do you mean guidance? And who are your guides? And da 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 da. Here's what I mean. My point of view on it is there is a networked intelligence that we can all tap into at any time. When I'm working, I do my best to stay tapped into that while tapping into you and this conversation. So, okay, thank you. So I often start with an invocation for anything I do. So I'm going to do that with you all now, and then we'll get into this conversation. Okay, so the very first thing I'm feeling is just like heart energy. This community is a community that cares deeply, and cares deeply not just for humans, which is often an energy I feel, but as a community. This is a community that cares for the planet. Like I'm seeing goats and animals and plants and people and like the whole ecosystem. Good, thank you. And there is this endeavoring to make it work, to repair this system that we live in and are a part of. If there's one thing energetically I'm tapped into, is a level of boldness throughout this conversation that I'm going to be encouraging you to step into. The stake in the ground, and especially putting words to the stake in the ground, being messengers for the world you see, because we create with the words we use. Good, and so it is. So here's the deal. I'm on this planet because I believe that the story we've been living for humanity is outdated and isn't working anymore. And I work particularly with messengers because I feel like there is a new story for humanity for us to live into. And it takes the new storytellers to tell that story. We create with the words we tell, right? A house. How does a house get built? Somebody sees a vision for, oh, like I live up on this hill, right? Oh, there's this great spot at the end of this street. It's a dead end and it has this box cannon at the end, and we could build it like this, and da da da. And then we share it with an architect, and the architect draws it, and then we see the picture. And once we see the picture, then we get a contractor and we start building it. And this is how we create everything. This is how we create our businesses. We get dreams, right? Which land in our hearts, land in our spirit, land in our field. We get a conviction in our gut. And then we put words to it. And I want to encourage you from the get-go to put words to what you feel before you feel like the words work. So often I feel like for messengers, we wait to share what we see until we feel like we have it all figured out. But how we figure it out is by actually telling one person, and then the next, and then the next. And every time we share a conversation about the world we see, about the business we run, guess what? We know more about it because we learn about it in reflection from others. It's a relational act, this creation. So that's just like high level. It doesn't immediately have application to this particular conversation, but I felt called to share that because I feel like you are all people who are messengers, who do see a different story for humanity. And it takes courage and boldness to open our mouths, to share it with everybody, anywhere we go, and then let the people that resonate with it lean in. So I want to start with a little bit of my background, and then and we'll get into a whole lot of good, juicy stuff. In 2005, I went on a blind date with this guy named James Schenk. And he was just this cutie patootie, these like cheeks on him. He was a chef in San Francisco. He owned this restaurant called Destino, which ran for 20 years in San Francisco, and just a sweetheart. And we didn't have a love connection in terms of the spark, but I did fall in love with something he talked about in our date, which is he used a coach to start his restaurant. And the coach asked him, hey, how are people going to feel when they walk into the restaurant? What kind of conversations are they going to have? When they leave and talk about it the next day, what are they going to say? And really built the emotional content of the restaurant first. Then, okay, great. Where's the location? What's the decor look like? What's the color palette? What's the price point, et cetera? Really built it from the inside out. And I was smitten. I was fascinated. Everywhere I went after this date, I was like, oh my gosh, I went on this date with this guy who's this thing called a coach. And my friends would be like, you should do that, Jeffrey. You'd be great at that. I'd be like, yeah. Right. Next person, I went on this date with this guy who's this thing called a coach. And after maybe a dozen of these conversations, it's like, maybe I should look into that. I was a corporate trainer at Microsoft at the time, right? And so I got trained as a coach. And like many of you probably hung my shingle, and crickets, absolute crickets. And that was the first rude awakening on the entrepreneurial journey, because I thought I was answering my life's calling. At Microsoft, I knew there was something different. I knew that wasn't it anymore. I didn't know what the next thing was. And everybody I went to, said, oh, you've got to find a niche. You have to have a niche. And how it was taught back then, at least, was, well, what have you done? And I have 2 degrees in music. I'm trained to be an opera singer, and I was a corporate trainer in technology. And people would be like, well, great, you can work with people in tech, or you can work with musicians. I was like, left tech for a reason, and a lot of musicians don't have much money, so I don't think so. Or they'd say, oh, well, here are the top 10 lucrative niches, or just nothing that was directly connected to me or my soul or my journey or who I am or why I'm here. Anybody have any experience in that arena? Right? Yes, I see the double hands up. And so I frankly was lost and really down. Because I felt like this was the thing, but I lived in San Francisco. It's an expensive city. I could not see how to make the money work doing this work. And then I met a guy named Tim Kelly, who became my mentor, like real old school apprentice-apprentee. Is that a word? Took me under his wings. I was the first person he ever trained in his work. We built a school in Israel together. I built his certification program. And that put me on this path. Tad talked a bit about wounds and marketing, and that's the first place that it really started to come in. In his system, we connect people with what we call a trusted source, a source of guidance outside of their conscious mind that could know their purpose and tell it to them. But part of how opening up those channels work, even for the most hardened people, is getting clear about people's fears of living their purpose and working with their conscious mind, their ego, to create the conditions under which the ego says, okay, so long as that's true, it's now safe for you to learn what your purpose is and go live it. So it was a lot of, I got trained in voice dialogue, a lot of parts work, kind of Gestalt sort of work, Enneagram, depth work, et cetera, and, channeling, spiritual guidance, et cetera, all to help people go, oh, here's why I'm on the planet. And so that's the first place I started to see this connection between the life we've lived, our wounds, our challenges, and the purpose we have on life. on life, on this planet, in our life. And over and over and over again, the clearer people got on their purpose, the more the life they had lived made sense. They'd say, oh, now I see why I had to go through that. Now I see why I was raised in that community, had those parents, had that middle school hell that I went through. Right now I see why I went through that debilitating illness. Now I see why this challenge or that challenge or this other one happened, because if that is my purpose, there's no way I could know how to do that, know the ins and outs of that landscape without having lived this life. One of my favorite Brene Brown quotes is, well, it's a paraphrase of a quote, which is, until you own your story owns you. And this was the first place I started to see people do this kind of reclamation journey of the life they've lived, to move from it happened to me to it happened for me. And not in abstract, right? We've all heard that phrase, not in abstract, but in reality, where they go, oh, I see that this is my purpose. It feels right that this is my purpose. And I see the direct correlation between the life I've lived and what I'm called to do in this planet. A good number of years later, I started a company with a woman named Suzanne Falter, and this is where Tad and I met. We created a company called the Spiritual Marketing Quest. And at first, I thought it was going to be adding Tim's purpose work to Suzanne's platform building work, which is, as Tad said, what you're known for in the market and who knows you. But it was too clunky. The thing that happened, though, is we would brand somebody and build out their platform, and some of them would freak out. They would go, holy shit, that can be a multi-million-dollar business. That could be a big business. And we're like, yeah, could. And their inadequacies started to show up. The, oh shit, I don't know if I'm ready for that, started to show up. So because of the depth work I'd done with Tim, I started doing depth work with people around their fear of success, their fear of money, their fear of influence. And what happened is I started to see this connection. You know, Suzanne would brand them and say, oh, here's the brand and here's the market and here's the market's craving. And I would say to her, yeah, I could have told you that. Like, given who they've been, what they've gone through, of course, that's the market and the market's craving. And I started to see this parallel between the life they've lived and the challenges they've gone through and the market they're here to serve. After a while, I thought, well, gosh, could we reverse engineer this? Start with a wound and have it lead us into market. And for about 15 years, I've done different forms of that. As I said earlier, I do a lot of work around messaging and leadership and paradigm change. But the foundation of my work was really around getting crystal clear about who your market is and who you are to them and they are to you. So for this particular training, we're going in that direction. I want to start here. Let me make sure I am screen sharing this. Good. I'm going to draw a few things. I thought I had this set up well. All right. I'm going to screen share my whole screen because it's not going smaller. So screen share. Here we go. And I'm going to just see if this is Ted, are you guys seeing a big whiteboard now?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Good. So I just want to start here. This is really rudimentary, but just so we can get on the same page of where we're going. This is who needs your work, right? So I'm going to start here. Everyone in the whole wide world needs my work. And there is work in this world that I think everybody could benefit, right? But we all know like not everyone needs it. So then we've got this next round in, which is everyone who can benefit. Okay, good. That's a bit narrower, but we still know that's too wide. So then we've got this next one, everyone who can benefit and wants it. This is where I find most people try to market. Everyone in the world who could benefit from what I do and actually is shopping for it, wants it on some level, whether they're logically aware of it or not. But I think that's still insufficient, and we need to go one more in, which is everyone who could benefit and wants it and needs it from you. This is where we're going in this conversation. Because if we're not doing that, my thinking is, why bother? If we're not doing that, you are a commodity competing with other people that on paper look like they do the same thing that you do. So who knows? Yep, I'm in a market where I do something where other people do something similar to what I do. Anyone? Most hands should go up here. Right? Yeah, most of us are in markets where there are other people who on paper look like they basically do the same thing or something similar. But there's this refinement, which is, yeah, but you also know that there's a particular kind of magic you have, right? Magic might not show up every day and with every client, but there are times when you're working with the right person in the right context where magic happens, right? Where your genius is just bubbling up and out of you. And it's like everything you have is being pulled out from the person in front of you, where they need exactly what you've got. And where like even these quirky, unique perspectives and this, oh yeah, well, I've also studied polyvagal theory, and I've also studied this, and I've also studied this other thing. And somehow it all comes to bear with this person in that conversation. Do you know what I'm talking about? Right? That's where we all want to be, because it is where your genius is on display, where they're getting the greatest value. And frankly, you're both in like massive joy. It's also where you are providing the greatest degree of value in the market you possibly can provide. That's where your value is exponentially higher. And if you decide you want to charge that value, charge a premium for a premium service, that's where your rates get substantially higher. And you feel congruent, commanding whatever rate you're charging because you know the value you're providing. That's the direction we want to go here. So how do we get there? I mentioned Suzanne Falter. When I met Suzanne, she was keynoting at a conference, and there is one phrase she said that struck me like lightning. I mean, I remember sitting in that ballroom going, holy shit, holy shit, holy shit. Because she called your platform the 1 square inch you can drill a mile deep in the market. Right? And immediately I was like, fuck, excuse my language, or maybe not. This is why so many entrepreneurs struggle. They don't know where that 1 square inch is, and they don't know how to find it. And I see so many people whose niche history looks like a backyard with gophers, right? Tried this, tried that, like whack-a-mole. That wasn't quite it. Let me shift over here, right? And we keep playing whack-a-mole, trying to find our freaking 1 square inch. You know, and I was like, holy shit, if I can help people find that 1 square inch, then we can just get to work. Then we can just do the work, not like the whack-a-mole. So all of this work is about that. And I've boiled down 1 square inch to 2 basic ingredients. But I want to tell a little story first. And by the way, in this time, I plan to have you do some inquiry, and then I plan to do a decent amount of hot seating and play. So lean in and we'll play together. I was born and raised in Holland, Michigan. My last name is Van Dyke. We have a windmill. We have a tulip time parade every spring. I had wooden clogs for the parade. People had license plate holders that said, if you ain't Dutch, you ain't much. It was a very homogeneous community. I was raised Dutch Calvinist. And then at the beginning of elementary school, we became hyper evangelicals, jumped into that world, went to a mega church. They put me in the evangelical people's private elementary school with chapel every day. And we had church every Sunday and twice on Sundays, morning and night, and Wednesdays. And at every chapel and every church service, there was an altar call. And those of you who don't know that world, it's basically like, hey, you're a sinner, you're going to burn in hell for all of eternity until you take Jesus as your personal Lord and Savior. And so if you don't know for sure that you've done that like if you walk out this building and get hit by a car, that you're going to go to heaven, you need to raise your hand and like come up to the altar and get saved. And this happened every church service. And as a kid, I'm like, I don't know who this dude in the sky is you're talking about exactly. And this personal relationship I'm supposed to have with this bearded dude, I don't know how to get it. And in those communities, at least where I grew up, there's a lot of judgment on people who weren't saved. So you don't talk about it, right? You don't talk about doubt or fear or questions. You just bottle it all up. And I don't really have many running memories from like 6th grade back. I think I literally was checked out of my body. And in 7th grade, I was at the beach that summer and with my big sister, and she was very pretty, and all her friends were really pretty. And, all in bikinis and on Lake Michigan. And I'll never forget laying out, right, with our copper tone on. And these girls walked up to say hello to some of her friends and their boyfriends. And I'm looking up from my towel, and there's like girls in their bikinis and guys in their board shorts. And I'm looking back and forth, and the abs like what is happening, and why do my eyes keep wanting to go there? And that was like nail in the coffin. Like, okay, there it is, like hell for all of eternity for me, because that's what I was taught. So those are details. The reason I tell you those is not for the details themselves, but to give you context for speaking about the patterning, because this is what we're going to talk about for the rest of our time today, which is patterning from the wounds, not necessarily the details of the wounds themselves. Our shared humanity is in our shared patterning. I'll say that again. Our shared humanity is in our shared emotional patterning. The people we bond with most readily share our emotional patterns on some fundamental level. I shared that story because the pattern for me was I don't fit, I'm an outcast. And it was a deep longing to belong without ever feeling like I had a place. Right? Then I became a total punk rocker with half my head shaved and started beating everybody up, but that's another story. And what I find is that the people I resonate with most today in my market are outliers. They're people that don't fit conventionally. And come hell or high water, no matter how much they try, like, it ain't happening. And this movement from I don't fit and therefore I don't matter or don't have value to I'm an outlier designed to be a way shower. Because the holy role, in my opinion, of the outlier is to be the way shower, the one who sits on the outside and has a different point of view. And when nobody can see what the new story is, the outlier is the one who says, hey, here's a way forward that none of you can see, right? But we have to lay claim to our role in society in order to make that shift. That's what's usually cooking underneath the surface for everybody I work with. Even if I'm working with them on a niche or on their platform or on their message or on their bigger purpose or strategy or anything else, what's cooking underneath is laying claim to their role in this society and in this planet at this time, unapologetically, not looking for permission, and being willing to be visible with their difference. Because what do people who don't fit often try to do? We try to fit in, right? In order to be at least liked, hopefully. And so let me just share a little bit about how that shows up in messaging with people that I work with oftentimes. If you don't fit or have a history of not belonging, and you've learned to do what you can to be liked, what often happens in your message is that it gets diluted, it gets boring, it doesn't have a stake in the ground, it doesn't ruffle feathers, because the moment you start doing that shit, guess what? You're going to be polarizing. And there are some people who aren't gonna like it. And if your internal system says, oh no, danger, Will Robinson, back up, unbeknownst to you, you're going to be too damn friendly in your marketing, too friendly in your messaging. And when you're friendly, it's dismissible usually, right? It's dismissible. I don't have to wrestle with you is what it says in the market. And so a lot of my work is about getting people to put a stake in the ground. I'm sure, with Tad point of view, to put a stake in the ground for their people, to put a stake in the ground for the world they want to see, to put a stake in the ground for how things can be, and to provide a path to that outcome for their people. So that is how the belonging wound, one of the ways the belonging wound often shows up in the world of messaging and marketing for entrepreneurs. So just for starters, in my world, are you seeing a bit about how a pattern shows up as a problem in a market? Yeah, good. I want to share just a few other stories, and then we're gonna decode this for you. A little while back, I was a guest teacher in a colleague's live workshop, and I was doing my song and dance, sharing this information, and a guy raises his hands, and this particular marketing workshop was not particularly spiritual or like earth-driven. It's just marketing, kind of, right? With good people, but just kind of straight ahead marketing. So this guy raises his hand. He's like, I don't really follow. I don't get it. I don't really think I have any wounds. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, I had a good family. I was raised well, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, cool, good. I get it. And some people have much deeper traumas than others, right? But I do find that we all have wounds. It's just part of how we develop our psyche and how we develop as people. And the little birdies start talking in my head, right? Intuition pops in, and I'm like, do you have an older brother? He goes, yeah. I go, okay. Was he like valedictorian, president of his class, captain of the football team? He's like, he was valedictorian, president of his class, and the captain of the football team. I said, okay, cool. And you were what, a couple years younger than him? He's like, yeah, 2. I go, okay. And did you follow directly in his footsteps? Or were you always just a couple rungs like below him, like on the football team, but not the captain? Did well in school, had a good GPA, but you weren't valedictorian. He's like, yeah. I said, okay, cool. And this happened for many years, like most of your lifetime, like this was a big part of your story. And he's like, yeah. I said, okay, cool. I was like, what's your market again? He goes, I train real estate agents. I said, okay, cool. And the agents that you do your best with, are they beginners? It's like, no. I said, great. Are they the one in their office that is always the number one with the most sales every single year? He goes, no. I said, are your best people the people who are like number 2, 3, 4, 5 in that office, always trying to get to the number 1 spot, but never making it? Right. And you could have seen like his world just rearrange. He was like, yeah. I said, okay, cool. How much of this conversation is currently in your marketing and positioning? He said, none of it. Right. And that's the moment the light bulbs went on of like, oh, that pattern shows up in my market. The pattern shows up in my market. One other story, and then we're going to do this together. I worked with a gal who came to me. I'll never forget this. You know those enrollment calls that like those certain ones you'll never forget? This was one of those. She was on the enrollment call and she said, as an aside, something about not being able to walk into this networking event. And I was like, what? What's that? What? Go back, rewind. And she said, well, yeah, I live in Phoenix. I drove across town a couple days ago to go to this networking event. It's like I got out of the car, walked up to the door of the hotel, put my hand on the handle, and just couldn't walk in. So I turned back around, got in my car, drove back across town, and went home. And I kind of chuckled, and I was like, we can address that. She's like, you can? I said, yeah, no problem. We got it. No worries, right? So we started working together. And I do this 2-hour intake with private clients called a Life PhD session, where I interview people deeply about their wounds and the patterns of their wounds. We're going to do a mini version together today. In the full version, I ask people about 3 to 5 different wounding experiences of their life. And I ask these questions for every single experience. How did you feel? What did you crave? What did you do? What skills did you develop? And what beliefs did you adopt to make sense of your world? How did you feel? What did you crave? What did you do? What did you develop? What beliefs did you adopt? Here's why I ask those. Everyone has a marketing application. How you felt, the pain, relates to the pain in your market. What you craved relates to the longing in your market. What you did to compensate to get by in your wounding experiences developed unique skills in you that can separate you and have you stand out in your market. And the beliefs you adopted to make sense of yourself and your world are the wounds you developed, which relate to the wound patterns in your market. Years ago, doing this work, it floored me when it hit me one day that our emotions, our deep, painful emotions around our wounds are not related to our wounding experiences. It seems like they're, oh, this thing happened and I felt that way. But when I do this with people, what's interesting is I go very deep in their feelings. You know, how'd you feel? And when you feel that way, then how do you feel? And when you feel that way, then how do you feel? And I do it on an Excel spreadsheet. We get a whole marketing list of words, frankly. And there are words that repeat every single time. Well, then I felt alone. Then I felt alone. Then I felt alone. Then I felt alone. Every single wounding experience. And so really, we have these wound buttons inside of us. And when they get pressed, there is a predictable cascade of emotions that comes across us every single time. Do you follow on that one? Right? And so what's interesting is that those emotions aren't related to this happened or that happened. They're related to the pattern that you're living out. The same pattern your ideal audience is living out. And therefore, when we find these recurring words, we use those as keywords in our marketing copy, because those are the words that our audience is going to go, holy shit, how did you know? It's like you're reading my diary, right? Because you know me. And the truth is, at some fundamental level, it's true. You do know them. This just demonstrates that you know them. This gal, her wound was stupid. I'm stupid. That was the core belief. I'm stupid. She's really what is that? Crack? I don't know. She's smart. She's what is that phrase? Whip smart, whip cracker? Anyway, she's whip smart. There you go. Thanks, Amber. Can't get it out. She's very quick-witted, right? And she threatened the hell out of her stepfather. And when she'd make these little cracks, she'd get smacked. She'd get hurt and get told, you're just a stupid little girl. What do you know? This guy was super threatened by her. And so from a development standpoint, she adopted the belief, I'm stupid, which was a fantastic belief to adopt, because when she told herself she was stupid, she would close her mouth and not say the wisecrack. And when she would close her mouth, she was less likely to get hit, right? Here she was all these years later, terrified to walk into a networking event, didn't know why. And when we landed on this, she's like, oh my God, I don't want them to see that I'm stupid. Right? I always say whatever is in the way is the way, right? The obstacle is the path. So we did some depth work around her befriending this stupid part of her, reclaiming that. And within 2 months, she's at this networking event. 3 months later, she's the speaker at it. When she came to me, she had made 20 grand so far that year. It was July. And later that year, she messaged me after she did her taxes, and she said it was 126 grand. So she added $106,000 to her bottom line in the last 6 months, because we crafted a program called, what was it? The 80-hour Workweek Cure. The reason we went that way is she's like, yeah, I work with these, kind of mom and pop entrepreneurs, storefront businesses, whatnot. And when we got clear on this pattern of stupid, she goes, oh my God, everybody I work with has one area of their business that is an absolute mess, and they won't get help for it because they don't want to be seen as stupid. Whether it's their books or their hiring or stocking or whatever, there's some part of their business that is an absolute nightmare. And therefore, they are working their tail off to just try to stay above water. So here's the next point that I'm going to share. And let me screen share again. Let me go back here. Okay, cool. So I talked about the 1 square inch you can drill a mile deep in the market, where you're not a commodity. You're doing the work only you can do. And it really is a combination of 2 basic ingredients. This is X marks the spot, right? Transaction and transformation. With her, the transaction was 80-hour work week cure. We'll get you to we'll get you down to a 50-hour work week. The transformation is having these people feel deeply seen, heard, and understood, and addressing the stupid wound as she worked with them so they had a transformation along the way. Here's why this matters. When you're working with people to get a result, right, from here to here, from 80 hours, let's say, to 50 hours. Sure, there are tactical things that need to happen. But there's this other journey that we're going on at the same time, which is what I would call a becoming journey. Who am I becoming to become the person that can not just get this result, but keep that result? Still only work 40, 50 hours a week, 3 months later, 6 months later, a year later. Who do I need to be to get and keep this result? And in my experience, that's often the part of business that is unattended to. It is the thing, oh, well, I gave them all the information. Yes, but did you give them the transformation required to utilize that information, to have the result you promise? And with so many like online programs and coaching and whatnot, if that's not attended to, you all have experience, right? If you don't do the work to become the person for the result, you don't get it. And if you do get it, you'll eventually sabotage it because your identity is not congruent with that result. I'm not the kind of person who has that. So maybe let's say it's a financial result and you have a really good month in your business, but your identity says, I'm not the kind of person who can have that much money or who can have that size business. Guess what? You'll sabotage it. And within a few months, you'll be back where you were. And the same thing is true for your clients, right? And the more we weave in this transformational element to the transactional promise of your business, the more we produce extraordinary results in our market. And there is no one in your market, right? Earlier I asked, how many people know that like there's other people in your market that do roughly what you do? Hands went up. That's a good thing. Here's why it's a good thing. The transaction is the thing people are usually aware of, have pain around, and are willing to spend money to solve. And if you don't have those three ingredients, aware of it, pain around it, willing to spend money to address it, you do not have a business. Yeah. And when I say pain, by the way, that pain can be ouch pain, get me out of this pain. The pain can also be a longing pain. I so desire to have that life, that outcome, that result. That's also a pain. So it's both aspirational, quote unquote, pain, as well as desperation pain. But if they're not aware of it, have pain around it, and are willing to spend money to address it, you don't have an offer. You don't have a business. And the place where that lives usually is in the transaction. How many of you have ever seen somebody's offer and man, you love this person and you so resonate with them and they speak to you and they move you emotionally, but you look at their offer and you can't figure out what they're selling? Anybody ever have that? Right? You're like, I'd love to work with you, but I don't know what we would do. For those people, the transaction isn't dialed in enough. Right? Getting really clear of what is the outcome, what's the promise of this business. But then there are people who have those really compelling offers that don't move you emotionally, right? Your brain is going, gosh, that makes a lot of sense. Gosh, I think I should probably buy that. Gosh, it'd probably be, valuable for me to learn that in my business. And, you click on the link and you look at the sales page and you're like, I'll look at it again tomorrow. And then you click again the next day and you look and you're like, yeah, I think I should do that. And then the 2 hours left to buy email comes and you go, oh, I need to do that. And then 2 hours goes by and you have dinner and like you wake up the next morning, you're like, oh, I didn't buy it. Oh, well, right? We know those offers too, right? Those are offers that are very transactionally compelling, but have no emotional content that compels us and connects with us. But when we have both, right, in marketing, we see people buy with emotion and justify with logic. We move people emotionally and make sense to them logically. And that's when it's much easier to buy. Yeah, thanks. Is it Pa? She said, they said, I feel like there is a safety consent piece there too in the transformation. For sure, for sure, for sure, for sure, for sure. So this is another place Tad and I are really aligned. I'm not going to get into this in this training, but one of the things I really firmly believe in is telling people what the journey is likely to be like, what they're going to have to be willing to do, to touch, to encounter, in order to go on that path. And then to say, you may or may not want that. You may or may not be ready for that. You may not want to do that with me. And if that's the case, all good, no harm, no foul. But if you are that person and that is a journey you're ready for, and you've been looking for a place to do it, and I am the person to serve you, hey, let's rock and roll, right? So for me, that's it, even in the sales process, that's part of the consent. Good. Let's do a little work together, and then I'll do some hot seating and do my best to demonstrate how this moves into offers and how this moves into messaging. Yeah, good. So we're going to do a super, 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 super down and dirty version of a life PhD session. I'm going to ask you to kind of go inside. So you might want to close your eyes for just a moment. I've been talking. And you might be wondering or thinking, gosh, what's my wound? What's this pattern for me? So I'm going to invite you to just have your subconscious serve up to you the last time you were triggered. Just some memory of being triggered. You're in your stuff. And maybe something wasn't going well. Maybe you got a blow of some bad news. Maybe you didn't offer in your business and it didn't work. And you're just feeling down. You're in your stuff. You're feeling poorly about yourself. I want to invite you to hear the words you tell yourself about yourself in those moments. I'm a loser. I don't have anything anybody wants. I don't know enough. I'm not enough. I'm not lovable. People don't want me. What are the messages you tell yourself about yourself when you're in your stuff? And if you're willing to, when you've got something, type it into chat. If you don't have anything, maybe think of one or two additional experiences and see, oh, yep, there it is again, there it is again, there it is again. I'll tell you what mine is. Nobody wants what I have. And I have literally directly worked with tens of thousands of people. There's all sorts of external evidence that says it's not true. And it doesn't matter when we're in our stuff, does it? Because it's not our brain running the show. So let me just read some of these. I'm at somebody else's mercy, so I'm not safe. I'm all alone. I'm not worth the effort it takes to care about me. Yep. I'm dangerous. That's a good one. Great. It's always my fault. I'm stupid. I cause harm just by being me. It's difficult to go alone and be different. I'm vulnerable. I'm all alone, not good enough. Afraid to say what I want to say because people will think I'm crazy or stupid. So I'm crazy. I'm stupid. Don't you know better? So even that one, Amanda, how could you do that? Don't you know better? Inside of don't you know better is a belief system, like which might be I'm stupid or clueless or something in that vein, maybe something else. Nobody wants my stuff. I'm not capable to do it. I can't make a difference. I'm useless. I'm not enough. I'm not desirable. If I am myself and say what I feel, I will hurt people. So that's another version of I'm dangerous. Who am I to think I can help? So tall poppy, which is I'm nobody, I'm nothing. I don't know enough, which if we collapse that, a lot of these wounds are from I'm not enough. And by the way, if you have any not enough wound, the trick is to go even a layer deeper and to say, I'm not enough because I am what, right? Not enough is an absence of something, but really the wound is what you say that you are, not the absence of something. So if it's I'm not enough because I am what? And even Beth, thank you, I'm not safe. Go back to identity, because at the foundation of all the wound is identity. I'm not safe, and that makes me what? Right? Who am I to think I can help Miriam? If I think I am somebody or all that, what does that make me? Then I'm what? A braggart? What is that? So I'm bad. Good, thank you. So here's where I go with wound, is that the foundation of all wounds is identity. It's a story we tell ourselves about ourselves that at a soul level is fundamentally untrue. But I will tell you this, it's a story your psyche adopted because it's a story you needed at a certain point in your life to get through. Just like I'm stupid worked well for the client I mentioned earlier, right? It was a valuable and necessary tool set to use to get through. And then of course we get later in life and we go, why do I do this? Why do I tell myself about this? Well, guess what? The safety security pathways were well worn using that belief system. And can you all feel the emotional tone in the call right now? It's vulnerable, it's soft, it's maybe tentative, but we're also leaning in. It's a little softer, a little quieter, but stuff's being moved in here that wasn't being moved when I was just speaking to your head, right? When we can bring both of these together in our marketing in authentic ways, we touch something in our people and hopefully potentially even move something in our people, even in the marketing itself, let alone the delivery, right? One more thing I'll say about wounds, and then we're going to do some hot seats to translate this stuff into market with you. We all do a mixture of one of two things in response to these core beliefs about ourselves. Okay, thanks. Hold on. I'm supposed to add one more thing. Years ago, I was studying with this theologian philosopher, and he was talking about fantasy. And he said, you know, gamblers are not addicted to winning. They're addicted to the fantasy of winning, right? Every time they play the lotto, every time they buy their scratcher, there's a dopamine hit of what their life could be like if only I strike it big. We also know that people that do strike it big, usually their lives become hell, right? There's all sorts of details about that. So the reality is, like, let's hope that you never win, right? But the fantasy is what my life would be like if I did. So what I'm actually playing for is not the money. I'm playing for the opportunity to engage in a fantasy. You follow me there, right? And what hit me is, oh, we all do a fantasy game with our core belief and our ego as well, which is we try to work our way externally out of the beliefs we hold about ourselves internally. Try to work it externally, right? So if you're told you're a loser, you're going to do your damnedest to be a winner. If you're stupid, I had another person with a stupid wound, by the way, at another conference I spoke at. And again, one of those intuitive things. I was like, oh, I think it's a stupid wound. She's like, can't be. And I was like, oh, okay. And I said, how many degrees do you have? She said, graduate or PhD? She had 3 master's degrees from MIT and Stanford, and she was working on her 2nd PhD. And I was like, what in the world would drive someone to have that much freaking education, but a stupid wound, right? And again, like the world collides and, right? Not to get political, but just because it's a shared, we've all seen it. Donald Trump, I swear he must have a loser wound because his language set is all about winners and losers. They're losers, they're from shithole countries, they're this, and we're this other thing, right? They're losers, we're winners. So much so that, an election loss, like can't. So then it must be fabricated, right? So there's another place of like fighting for the fantasy of the ego. So we all do 2 things in relation to these beliefs. We either deflate or inflate, puff up. And some people in some tribes tend to be more on a deflated path and tend to be more on an inflated path. So when I work with people that are type A, drivers, super successful, invariably they are inflated around their wound. What do you mean I'm a loser? Look at everything I've done, right? And of course, they're just reinforcing it for me. Or a lot of folks that tend to be more heartfelt, maybe more spiritual, conscious, tend to, as a group, deflate more. Oh, I'm a loser. I can't do it. I don't feel safe. And so we tend to fall into the belief versus fight against it. Of course, we all do a mixture of the 2. The reason I share the deflation and inflation is because in your market, it's important to notice for your tribe, for your people, for your community, do my people tend to inflate or deflate more? Where is their orientation? Those that tend to deflate more are going to be more attracted to overt transformation. What I'm selling is transformation around X, Y, and Z. Those that tend to inflate more in a market tend to be attracted more to results or transaction, where we kind of secretly weave in the transformation a bit more covertly. So how much you speak about the transformation depends on your market and how overt or covert you are. Typically, let's say you work in the relationship field. We're used to thinking about transformation and relationships, right? That's common. So that tends to be more overt. But in business, for example, we are not used to thinking or talking about transformation. So it tends to be more covert. We weave it in. So let's play. We'll work with a few of you and have some fun. So here's what I'm looking for. Anybody who's willing to raise your hand and share a little about the wound story and share a little bit about your business. And we'll do a little work around that 1 square inch for you. So who is willing? Diana, first hand I saw. She's like, hand up, both on the button and in the air.
Okay, well, first, if I can, just 1 minute, I have to thank you for our meeting over 10 years ago in San Diego. I don't know if you remember that. It was the first time I had ever shared with a stranger, and I'm getting emotional now, that I have psychic abilities. And I came up to you and gave you a hug and said, I see us in this dimension and you're walking this way. And I have to say that they want to thank you. You're doing a great work. And you got chills and you're like, oh, that's truth. And I said, but what do I do with this? Like, how do I share this with people? And you were so reassuring. You're like, you just have to, line your energy. So really what I don't share with people my psychic abilities, that I very easily see the invisible world.
Yep.
And the wounds are from my childhood. No one understands me. I can't tell people what I see and what I know. So I can't be me. And as a coach, I help people be themselves.
Yeah.
But I still don't share that I have psychic abilities and other wounds, because then this gets really personal, but I'm going to be strong. Each of my 3 Italian husbands cheated on me, and I psychically would know and confront them with that. And sometimes there was some violence involved in that when you talk about inflating. And I was like, oh, okay, well, then what I see, I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And so there's
Hold on, I'm going to
Okay.
interject a bit.
Yeah,
So
go.
the lesson here is I can't trust myself,
Okay.
right? Because I'm wrong. So what I see must be wrong. I get blamed and told it's incorrect. I get gaslighted, right? So I can't trust myself.
And you can imagine for work, asking people, well, if I can, I'm sorry, I interrupted
Yeah, no,
you.
go for it.
But
So tell me about
my
that.
favorite clients have been intuitive men that have extremely important business decisions to make, but they can't tell the boardroom that they already made the decision under the shower.
Yep.
And so I help them understand what the intuitive space is like. And, we do, yeah.
Yep. Good. Tell me a little bit about the business a bit more, like who's your market? What do you do?
Well, I took I'm sort of on a prolonged sabbatical after some, family trauma. And I'm going through Tad's work and thinking that maybe my business model is more about writing books. So I'd like to do, books and video courses. My project is, though, to train people in my coaching methodology, because I have a lot of science and the healing aspect. And so now the reason why I wanted to ask you the question, because I know you can feel into things, is I'm not too sure if, psychic abilities are innate or if they can be trained, or I guess I don't want to tell people that I can help them have the qualities I have. So that's why.
I totally get it. So I have an opinion about that. My opinion
please.
is that we all have access to source energy. Some of us, I think, are more predisposed to it than others, but we all have access to it. I would also say, so to me, when I'm marketing, I've talked about head and heart in this conversation, but really for another conversation kind of thing, the work I'm really up to is speaking to the head, to the heart, to the gut, and to the spirit. 4 senses, right? And that this gut instinct of like, oh yeah, that's it. The more we root into our stake in the ground and and champion our people and go to bat for our people, the more they can feel our care and commitment, and that gut sense of I can trust you occurs, not just I feel connected to you or I know what I'm buying. And then when we lean into who these people are becoming, and even what's the larger mission for all of my people that we're all a part of, and I start to speak to that, we activate this kind of spiritual knowing, if you will, or like, yes, that is why I'm on this planet, right? So there are really four senses that I focus on. To me, your work, full stop, is about having people trust themselves. The context of that is going to be different for different markets and different offers. But the through line in every single one of us, in my experience, have a through line. This is what I do, that I do, that I do, that I do. And I don't care if it's with my best friend or my cousin's kids or my market. I'm always doing this thing. You are on a path of having people trust themselves. This is your life PhD, learning to trust yourself, learning to trust yourself, learning to trust yourself, especially when what I see or know can't yet be corroborated with visible external evidence. Now, if your market is businessmen, right? If that's the market, before the pandemic, there was this term in the business world that people were using, VUCLA, right? Volatile, unpredictable, chaotic. And then COVID came and it just blew that term out the window, because now it's just like, what the fuck is happening, right? So when we are in a world that we know isn't working, in a market that is highly unpredictable, where strategies can't be 3, 5, 50 years out and hold water because there's so much change, not to mention AI coming in and everything else happening, right? How do we navigate? Right?
By trusting ourselves.
That's it. Right?
Yes.
So whether that's your gut sense about something, whether that is intuitive, however that's occurring, I make a bit of distinction between gut and guidance. Gut being my gut instinct about something, which feels more internal to me. Guidance being tapping into that grid work of intelligence. And to me, both have to happen, right? Trust is a big part of what I have to train the leaders I work in. But it all starts with trusting yourself, because you cannot trust guidance if you don't trust yourself. You're going to toss it up. The big hit's going to come and you're going to dismiss it and toss it out the window, right? And then there's the risk taking that goes with the trust. Here's the big thing that I do a lot of work with, that my sense is you will do work around, which is, how do I translate what I know intuitively into language that the board of directors can hear?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like right now, I have a client who came to me, said, I'm here to, it's a real estate developer. He goes, I keep getting this message. I'm supposed to help use real estate to help people self-actualize. And he's like, I don't know what to do with this. Help, right? And the translation has been, we've developed a IP company using neuroscience, color theory, lighting technology, design principle, all these different disciplines that know how to use the built environment to help people decelerate and drop in. The sales pitch, when we're working on a deck right now for investors, right? And this guy's super successful. The sales pitch is basically, look, it's the most simple sales pitch in the whole world, which is, when people are in spaces that feel good, they want to stay. When you walk into a restaurant, when you walk into a home, when you walk in anywhere, oh, it feels good in here. You walk into a bar that has no energy, what do we say? It's dead in here. Let's leave, right? And so he and his colleagues build apartment buildings. So he's basically coming into the market saying, hey, we're all trying to differentiate with luxury, rooftop decks, this, that, the other thing, but we're not attending to the most basic thing that has people go, I want to live here, and has less turnover because they want to stay. Now, the fact that this has all been intuitively guided, that I've helped him connect with his guides and learn more about it, that we've translated it into this offer with all these different disciplines. None of that matters when it comes to the market. What matters comes back to basic marketing, which is, what's the value proposition? How we get there is, frankly, doesn't matter when it comes to the investors. Now, I will add that there's a deeper mission happening for him, which is, hey, when people feel good, they know themselves more. When they know themselves more, they contribute more, and we need more people that can contribute to society right now. That's the secret mission. And with some of these investors, when intuitively he feels called to bring that in, he does, right? And has them feel part of a larger mission in this world. So for you, the thing that I would have you do as you're examining your business model and even examining markets, and this is all this can apply to all of you. Take this pattern. Oh, it's about learning to trust themselves and eventually trusting their intuition. Let's just for shits and giggles examine that with business for a moment. If you were a relationship coach, right? It would be about working with people who don't trust themselves about their deeper knowing about what's going on in their families, and don't feel like they're a leader in their family because they don't trust themselves in their family leadership, right? If it were somebody in a health field and you don't trust themselves, guess what? It would be probably working with people who keep giving the authority about their body to the experts, and have reached the end of that working for them and need to not just find the paths for their health that works, but learn to trust their own inner knowing and inner voice about what their body needs for whole health and healing. So I share that because I want you all to hear that this pattern is going to show up no matter what the market is, if that's the pattern you work from, if that's what's in your life PhD. Good?
Yeah, thank you for saying that. Just a final thing, because I am a psychosomatic illness therapist and I help people tune in to their body and what the message of the illness is. And then we just switch that with, keywords. Thank you, Jeffrey. This has been wonderful. Thank you again. Great to see you.
Good to see you, Diana. Thanks. Good. Who else? Pa.
Hello.
Hi. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Yeah, thank you. Before we go into the pattern, tell me a bit about the business.
Sure. My audio might blip as it transitions.
Your audio is good.
Okay. So I'm an editor, a literary editor.
Okay, it did blip for a minute. Let's try. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, I'm an editor. I'm a literary editor.
Oh, beautiful.
So I've been working with doing like rush turnaround for romance novelists. And right now I'm helping with like business copy and business
Good.
POV.
Now, you're here right now with me in this moment because there's something more you're wanting to live into. What's that?
I have a lot of skills and capacity, and I feel like my time isn't being utilized enough.
Yeah.
So I would love to just like book out my schedule with more.
Yeah. Just be unrealistic for a moment with me. And like, get the magic wand out and say, like, here's how I'd love it to be. At least some of what I see.
Yeah. Like, are you ready?
I'm ready. This is what I'm asking for.
Ooh, if I could have like a meditation retreat center that has a Waldorf school built in, if I could be editing 3 books in a month and then writing a book, if I could have just like wholesome space with like my little permaculture garden and my food forest, it's a lot. I like a lot of things.
Now, there is so that's the like, oh, here's the big dream.
Right.
Tell me, there's one next thing that has been like poking you on the shoulder, saying, Pa, this. What's that?
Being more visible.
Woo! Yes, around
Like the capability, around my with offers.
Okay, so this is about increasing your authority.
Ooh.
That's what's on tap for you right now. So tell me a little bit about when we did the itty bitty down and dirty life PhD. What's the pattern that you started to connect with?
Yeah, was this like the trigger moment or is this something else?
Yeah.
The trigger moment was last night.
Okay.
I was talking with a friend and he said, there's such a low density of information when you speak. And that was like, what? I've always been the fire hose. So that just like kind of knocked me on my butt a little bit. And I was like, what does this mean? What does this mean? And I've been like, what can I do about it since then?
Yeah. So low density. Uh, what button got pushed when those words were said in terms of like the story you tell yourself about yourself?
Yeah. So there's an aspect of like I'm not being my authentic self somehow, like I'm not reflecting my inside to the outside adequately enough. And there's also this like I'm being misunderstood, and I'm not being heard. Like I've been very much myself with this person and they can't hear me and can't see me. It's like screaming and no one can hear.
Yeah. Did you all hear that last phrase, screaming and no one can hear? It was kind of a toss away phrase, but it was the phrase, right? So that's the piece, screaming and no one can hear. Tell me about how that showed up in your early childhood.
Oh, okay. Um, I grew up in a very like negligent and abusive household. So it was always very loud and dangerous. And then when it wasn't loud and dangerous, I was totally alone and like not safe when I was totally alone because I was just a little kid, and also not safe when I was like around the chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Okay.
like my voice never heard. Like
Yeah.
I was just invisible. Like I'm allergic to that food, and that's like the only food that is. You love this, don't you? I have never liked that. I
Yeah.
cannot eat that. Yeah.
Take a breath. Because it takes a lot to share that, like with a stranger. So thank you.
In a room full of people on a
Yeah.
recorded.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Woo.
Yeah. So I want you all to hear, and Paul, I want you to hear the depth of a life PhD there. It's not like, oh, I was nipping at my brother's heels, and other than that, I don't think I have wounds. Your life wasn't that, right? And I find my experience has been those with the deepest wounds and deepest traumas often have the biggest purposes, right? We front load the training for the service down the road,
Yeah.
right? So I say that to validate the big dream, the big vision, the Waldorf school, like, yeah. I do a lot of storytelling training, and one of my favorite things in the world is working with people on stage, getting them on their feet and coaching them as a performer with their story, right? And there are sometimes I work with people where they talk like this and they're on stage and you can barely hear them, right?
Yeah.
And when I try to get them to have some resonance in their inner ear, it feels like they are screaming, right? There's a lot of work here. So there's two patterns that I want to pull out, one for you and for your audience, but especially for you, and one for your audience. So for you, you're on a journey into your authority. And my sense is it's probably going to be a lifelong journey, right? We lay claim to this part of our authority, and then this, and then this, and then this, and then this. Because your system, the trauma in this system is, it's not dangerous. It's not dangerous. It's not safe to be seen. It's not safe to show up, right? So no wonder you're an editor, because you can be a bit behind the scenes editing their books right?
I'm a writer too. I've written like 18 novels.
Okay, great. Good. Um, and the novels are fiction?
Well, there's some nonfiction too.
Okay, cool.
We'll ever get to read those.
So I want you to try something on.
Okay.
Do your best with filling in this phrase to all of us. I am the best in the world at. Anything, I don't care what it is.
Laughing. Curiosity.
Okay, curiosity. Good. One step. That is awesome. Here's where I see you going. There's something you do when you're working with the right client, and the right client often feels misunderstood. And especially when it comes to editors, they have worked with other editors that don't get them, that don't get their voice, that don't hear what they're trying to go for, that keep trying to put your audience has other people keep trying to put them in a box, whether that's other editors, whether that's a publisher, whether that's an agent. I don't care what it is. They keep feeling misunderstood and misrepresented. And so they don't feel safe giving their work to a whole lot of editors, because every time they do, it gets misconstrued and the whole thing falls apart and it's a shit show, right? So part of your marketing is like, look, I get that as a writer, your voice matters. What you have to say matters. That's why you show up to the page. That's why you put your blood, sweat, and tears into your book. My work is to deeply understand who you are, your point of view, and what you're trying to bring to this world long before I get to the words on the page and work side by side with you to edit your book and have it be all it can be. If you're tired of feeling misrepresented, if you're tired of feeling put in a box, if you're tired of having people try to have you be something that you're not really here to be as a novelist or writer, you're the kind of person I'm on earth to work with.
Mm-hmm. That's in my marketing.
Good.
That's all over the place. Yeah.
The more you lean into that, the better. And then there's one additional ingredient. And I think the reason you're on this call today is for this ingredient. To have the, okay. Y'all know how sometimes we can say something, but people don't feel our backbone in it. And so while we say it, it still is kind of dismissible, right? And oh, we got a friend. Hi, buddy. Tucker. Come here. Oh, okay. Part of what you're asking yourself to do is put a bigger stake in the ground for your skill set and the value you bring to these people, right?
I have a tough time with that, because
I
it feels like when I
know.
speak to what I can do, nobody believes me. It's like,
Yeah.
that's not possible. Like,
So-
I'm doing it right now.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
how is it
So
not
part of it is not the words. It's not that the words aren't there. It's the energy behind the words, which is I'm not believable, right? I'm misunderstood. I don't have a right to have this voice, or it's not safe to, like all that material, that's the place to lean in. We all know that this world is energy, right? Everything's energy, and it gets translated into material form, bodies, dogs, words. Alana, thank you. And so part of this is the energy behind those words.
Can I speak to another consistent experience I had?
Yeah.
So specifically in engineering school or male-dominated spaces, I would share an idea or answer something or contribute to a project, and people couldn't hear me. It was like I was invisible. And
Yep.
I feel like I have a lot of resonance and volume in my voice. but it was like they couldn't hear me, and the person next to me would say the same exact thing with the same words. And it would be like, oh, thank you so much. Like,
Yeah.
that is an excellent idea. Dinkrit had a fantastic idea. Like, way to go, buddy.
Yep.
But I'm
All right.
right here.
Yeah. So there's a book I want you to read by Elizabeth Lesser, who's the co-founder of the Omega Institute. She wrote a book called Cassandra Speaks. I had a podcast. She was on my podcast. Maybe start with that interview. Amazing woman. But there's a story of Cassandra. By the way, we are at time. Let me say one quick thing, then I'll go back to Cassandra. I'll stay for Q&A for a bit. I don't have a hard stop unless that is illegal. I don't know. I haven't asked Tad ahead of time. But let me just do one quick, Tad invited me to share where people can find me. So let me just say that real quick for those of you that got to go. And then we'll go back to this Cassandra Speaks piece. I'm going to put a bunch of stuff in chat, my website, Facebook group. I do a conversation every week on the Facebook group on Tuesdays. I kind of channel a message. On Mondays, I send this basically consciousness email about our work for messengers. So that's the weekly message. And then on June 20, I've got a masterful packaging training I'm doing. So that's the last link there. So anybody that wants to follow my stuff, that's where it is. All right. Oh, and on the website, by the way, Pa, is in the resources, there's a drop down, or no, it just is a link, podcast. So look for the Elizabeth Lesser one. Elizabeth wasn't, she co-founded the Omega Institute, a big transformational training place in New York. And there was this fuddy-duddy professor she was talking to years ago who told her about this story of Cassandra. Cassandra was, the most beautiful daughter of so-and-so and so-and-so, and everybody wanted her, including the gods. And Zeus and Apollo, I think it was Zeus or maybe Jupiter, fought over her. Anyway, I think it was Apollo that offered her this gift, which is to be able to see the future and tell people about it. And she really wanted this gift. So she said, okay, great, I'll take it. And he says, great, now you've got to sleep with me. Yeah, that. And she was like, no. And so then he cursed her and said, I'll curse you. You'll get to keep this gift, being able to see people and tell people about what you see the future and tell people what you see. But the curse is that no one will believe you. And so she sees Troy getting destroyed. She sees her family getting murdered, and she tries to tell everyone, and no one will believe her until eventually she's driven mad. Yeah. Right? So this book, Cassandra Speaks, is about this history in patriarchy and with women of dismissing women's voices and having them think they're crazy because they're not heard. I share that with you because it's archetypal. It's not just personal. You do have a personal history with it, but there's also an archetypal experience that you're inside of too. So it sounds to me like from a patterning perspective, you're doing a good job of putting the right frame from a pattern into your marketing. So that's awesome. I think for you, the biggest piece is an energetic piece of looking at and addressing the I'm not believed, I'm not heard, I don't have a voice, and doing a deeper dive into that material personally. And I think maybe that Elizabeth Lesser episode in her book would be a good way into that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. There's and just one more thing. Keep this word authority. I'm stepping more into my authority. It's not about them believing me. It's about me stepping more into my authority. Good? All right, cool.
There's this like action statement and things that I've been clinging to and have come to me in the last few weeks.
Yeah.
And it's I am sovereign, and then I choose empowering boundaries is like the action around that. So,
awesome.
Thank you. Yeah,
you got it. You got it. There was two more that had their hand up already. So Andrew and Kate will do both of you, and then I'll probably have to run. So, and Amanda had a question. I'll look at that in just a moment. Andrew, let's go to you.
Hi, Jeffrey. Thank
Hey.
you very much.
Yeah.
I'm an accidental practitioner
Yep.
in the sense that basically architect, midlife, became a psychotherapist, stumbled into shamanism.
Yep.
I ran a meetup here in London on shamanism for about 4 years, where I learned how to take muggles and in a very short period of time, turn them into wizards.
Yep.
So I think my particular skill set is looking quite conventional and being able to take this very unusual stuff and make it grokkable.
Yeah.
In that process, I discovered a market of mostly upper level executive women who were at crossroads, being bullied, difficulty in the corporate environment, and they were looking anywhere for a solution because the normal stuff wasn't working, and they just happened to stumble across me. And all of a sudden, I'm in business helping them.
Mm-hmm.
However, for the last 3 years, my business has been flatlined in the sense that my inability to be seen or public is, the meetup stopped working at a certain point. That was kind of my marketing platform, and I've never really been able to figure out how to be seen.
Yeah. Great.
Since then. And in terms of I was the one who said, nobody wants my stuff. I can't make a difference because I don't matter.
Oof. Thank you. You ever heard that? I think it's a Harry Connick Jr. song, trying to matter. It's a good tune. I'll see if I can put it into chat. So this I don't matter. The inflated version of that is what for these executive women?
I think they keep getting seduced into trying to join the old boys club.
So that they matter.
And they, they keep going for these jobs and these positions, and I've got one client who was, headhunted into this amazing job. They were going to be rebuilding the entire corporate culture, team of 40. When they showed up, none of that stuff existed. And they're being, gaslit, and, it was out of the frying pan into the fire.
Good. So let's put how you can be seen off here to the side for a moment. I want to go to what the marketing conversation I think is for you.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the work I did today isn't directly related to this, but if we in the hero's journey, right? There's the call to adventure, the getting challenged, and then there is the slaying the dragon, facing the fear. And then the second half of the journey, the return journey home, is bringing the elixir back to the community, bringing the elixir back to the, often to the very people that exiled you. There is another kind of messaging strategy that I use with some people, especially with higher level clients, that I consider mission-based marketing. And that is, if you have it's one thing to have an audience. It's another thing to have like your people, your community. I know sometimes this word is challenging. I wish I knew a better word. I have not found one yet, your tribe. And when I say that, I'm talking about the word we've used for thousands of years, not just Native Americans. And that tribe, that audience, that community, on the first half of the journey, when we're practitioners with them, we're basically saying, I help you with, and we onesie, twosie, or even in a group, we're helping them with their own personal challenge to overcome it, continue the journey, face the dragon. But on the return journey home, the conversation shifts from I help you with to we are here too. We are here too. We are here to do this thing. This is our shared mission in this world. This is what we are here for. And it's about calling them into a higher order mission in this world. One that is true about them, that when they hear it, it's like the amnesia clears up, right? The smelling salts are under their nose. And they're like, that's it. That is why I'm here. That's what I'm meant to be a part of, right? And it like snaps them to attention. Now, how to do that mission, how to engage in it, that's a whole nother story. That's often where they need help and a community and support and guidance and tools, right? But to name the mission. So what do you think the mission is for these women on this planet at this time?
Well, just parenthetically, the heart of my work is a shamanic process known as destiny retrieval. And my sort of tagline is it took me 48 years to figure out what I was here to do with my life, which is to help you figure out what you're here to do and do it.
So,
but
here's
I think,
hold on. And you might just need to go in and get quiet for this one for a minute. So there's the individual's destiny, but then there's a shared work that these women are all a part of, a higher order service in this world at this time. What's that?
What I heard at a cacao ceremony recently was to create peace on earth.
Yeah. And how are these women uniquely positioned to be able to engage in that mission?
Well, in many cases, they're approaching C-suite or C-suite.
Yeah.
They tend to be the ones who are actually getting the work done in their company, while other people are sort of taking credit for it.
Yep.
So they're very, very powerful. They're very, but they're they're caught up in the politics and the BS and the jockeying, and they have a real hunger for, I want to make a difference, and I can feel that I'm not.
Yes. Okay, good. So part of this, and this is that gut and spirit part of the messaging. The gut part is to call them on the game they're playing and say enough, right? It is time you stop getting seduced by the old boys club. It's time to not continue seeking these old boys, the old guard, to tell you that you matter, to tell you that what you have to contribute matters. It's time to lay that aside and step into the work you're really on this planet to do, which may or may not be at the company you're currently at, right? Because if you're not doing on some level this higher order work of creating peace on earth, and when I say peace on earth, and I'm not talking about pie in the sky, I'm not talking about kumbaya, I'm talking about the daily interactions with real humans, the people in your company, the people in the boardrooms, the people you see on the sidewalk, the people at the grocery store. That's where peace on earth happens. And you are someone who has the ability to have a big impact on real life, day-to-day peace on earth. And if you're not doing that, you're not doing what you're here to do. And the question is, are you going to spend another decade or two trying to fit into the old boys club? Or are you going to put a stake in the ground because you're the one who actually gets things done and applies that to this real world work right now? It is a calling them forward conversation, right? And it is bigger than personal destiny. That's the big shift for you, I believe, right now, right? That person, that's fine, that's good. Well, may make sense out of my own personal world. But for these people at that level, making sense of their own world isn't big enough. It's not expansive enough. It doesn't actually make sense of their world. It's
the second to last step. The last step is something that's been described as angelic retrieval. Is retrieving something much, much bigger.
Yeah. So that's the direction that I would point you, is expanding the conversation, having a higher level conversation, and the kind of stake in the ground, calling them forward piece in your messaging. And you do that, and I think you're going to have more of the right people go, holy shit, that's the conversation I need to be a part of. I think I need to work with you. Awesome.
Thank you. That-
Good.
that feels really congruent. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew. Love what you're up to. Kate, and then we'll wrap up.
Hi,
Hi.
thanks for staying on for me.
Yeah.
So I'm working with people with anxiety. I tend to focus my marketing on women, although I do work with men as well. And I'm working with them using a number of different techniques, like you were talking about, parts integration, and working with emotions, somatic work, hypnotherapy, NLP, whatever they need. And right now, and I've been having this discussion throughout the point of view work we've been doing in the last few weeks about my niche and who I'm really speaking to, because anxiety is a big subject, and many different wounds in there could be causing that. And I'm just interested to speak to what my wound might be that is my way of speaking to the people.
Yeah.
So, and when you were asking earlier about the things that were triggering, for me, it came up that I'm boring. I certainly identified with what Pa said about speaking and nobody listening. So when I was in the corporate world in a board meeting, I would say something and then everyone wouldn't hear my version, but the next person that said it would get heard. So there's part of that, I think. And there's also a big thing of rejection, which I know goes back to being adopted. When I was born, I was taken from my mother at birth and then put in foster care for a while. So I know there's a lot of alone feeling around that, and being rejectable, and then picking a lot of partners that rejected me and cheated on me because probably I didn't believe I was worthy of anything more than that. And the kind people I would reject. I wouldn't want to be with kind people. And I don't feel safe around wherever everyone else feels safe when they fit in. To me, that's when I'm not safe. I feel safe when it's edgy, when it's dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm interested in what comes up for you when I say that.
Well, the first thing that comes up for me is that you're a fighter. You're a fighter. And part of the people that need what you've got need a fighter in their corner. We'll get to them for a minute, but that's the first bit. And there's this fighting against, and then there's fighting for, right? And you've done the work, from my feeling of it, to be a person who can fight for something. And that's very noble, in my opinion. This phrase, I've never heard it, and I love it. You said, I'm rejectable. I'm rejectable. Like, yeah, it's an option. You can reject me. I'm rejectable. What kind of person is rejectable? People who are what?
Disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
It's the first word that came up.
Okay, hold on.
Dull.
I'm going to ask you a question, and I recognize this is a public forum, so feel free to say, yeah, let's not go there. Is there any sexual abuse in your past?
Not that I'm aware of.
All right.
I've had it's more rejection, where where partners have gone off and cheated on me. So they found someone else more attractive than me, or for some reason must have been disgusting for that to have happened. Subconsciously, there's something around that.
Yeah.
But also my mother rejecting me for, I know she didn't, but the feeling for that little baby when she was born was that she felt disgusting, because why else would I be here alone in this dark room on my own?
Yeah.
I've just been born.
So this piece, disgusting, right? It's a deep form of self-rejection. I'm disgusting, right? And it's almost like you want to, here's the feeling I get when I say it, when I try it on. I almost want to like try to take my skin off, like get me off from me, because I'm disgusting. And disgust is a very, charged, it's very deep emotion, right? The only reason I asked about the sexual abuse piece is oftentimes when I run into disgusting, it's often has a sexual abuse piece where then they feel disgusting, right? This is a, it starts with adoption, being given up. Here's what's interesting about wounds and beliefs. Disgusting isn't the only way to make sense out of having been adopted, but it is the way your psyche made sense out of it.
Mm.
And, and there were reasons for that. And then we recapitulate it and start seeing our world through the lens of, am I disgusting or not? And do they see me as disgusting or not? And will I be rejected or not? When you are living inside of the experience of feeling disgusting, how does that relate to anxiety?
I think it relates to, like you were saying, you don't feel anything. You stop feeling because it's too painful to feel.
Yep.
And eventually the feelings just explode out in anxiety, as we would call anxiety or panic or burnout, whatever it might be, because you've driven yourself to that place. So it's the suppression of the feeling, because you can't bear to feel how it feels to be yourself.
Yeah.
And so you reject that because it's disgusting to feel.
Yeah. So to me, who all is just starting to see her market now? And Bueller. Here's what I'm seeing. There is this kind of flip-flop experience you just said that I think is probably core for your people, which is either flat, suppressed and flat, or full out like panic. And so I go from like numb to panic to numb to panic. And I can only imagine how much that would wear on someone, like adrenal fatigue and holy shit, to manage that big of a turn on, turn off, turn on, turn off, turn on, turn off, turn on, turn off, right? Ooh, good, thank you. And what I just heard is, and it's very unpredictable for them. Is that true?
Yeah, it's because normally you can just control it, keep it suppressed, but then it will just come out of nowhere, and you can't control it, and that's the scary part.
That is the primary thing I would be speaking to all day, every day in your marketing. That experience right there. That's the nail on the head for where the pain lives for these people. There's a deeper pain. Okay, here's kind of I've got 5 more minutes. We always need to meet our market where they're at, which is what is the most immediate, most identifiable, I need help with that problem that presents itself right up front. And then for a lot of audiences, there is a deeper conversation that sits just underneath that initial pain. So our offers often have to have a promise that's related to that initial pain, but also, like, deeper in the copy and in the offer, speak to the thing that sits underneath it. So for you, the surface thing here is, I can't control when it hits, right? And I would speak at length about examples of all these different people and client examples of when it hits, and the havoc it wreaks in their marriage and their job and their health, right? Boom, boom, boom. But the primary problem I'd be speaking to is, I can't control when it's going to hit. And for your people, I just see that when it hits, shit gets messy quick. Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because it either just bursts out, or they try and suppress it and can't properly, and then they panic.
Good. So that's the first thing. Second thing, in health and well-being, business or career, or personal relationships, which area does it usually wreak the most havoc in that they come to you complaining about?
I would say they come to me most likely with health, and relationships too, but I'm not a relationship coach. But
you don't need to be.
It's the damage is in their relationships, certainly, because they're so alone anyway, and then this just pushes people away. Or
yeah, that's what I'm getting. I don't think you have to be a relationship coach to address the anxiety and this pattern. But let me give you an example. Years ago, I worked with this gal who came to me and said, "Oh, I do," what she said, "mindset work for weight loss." I said, "Okay, cool. Question: have you ever heard someone say, 'You know what I need? I need a mindset coach for my weight loss'?" And she's like, "No, never heard that." It's like, okay, good. So we're going to stop saying that. And got into a market, and, are these people obese? No, it's like, that last 30 pounds or so. Okay, good. Men or women? Women. Age range? Oh, they're in their 30s, early 30s, late 30s, late 30s. Now I get excited. I'm like, single or married? Single. Want to get married? Yes. Blaming their weight on the fact that they're not married? Yes. Ding, 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 right? So I branded her as the relationship ready body. Primary, secondary. Body being primary, relationship being secondary. She doesn't work with them on their relationships. She helps them have the body that they believe they need to have the relationship. By the way, in the work, she also addresses the bullshit about that conversation, right? But she meets them where they're at in that brand. So for you, this anxiety, the outburst, is where I would meet them and then speak deeply to the havoc it wreaks in their relationship and feeling so fundamentally alone, right? For you, personal story is going to be super, super strong in your brand, right? Saying, "Hey, I was adopted as a kid, had these relationships, and what I found is that I kept rejecting myself. One of my stories, I'm disgusting, right? And when I do that, what I find is I numb out to no longer feel it. I shove my emotions, but sooner or later, they'd come out. A trigger would happen, something would occur, and it would all burst out and wreak havoc in my life. If that's happening for you, what your life probably looks like is this today, or maybe it looks like this, or maybe it looks like this. And you know that it's not about working with a relationship coach, or maybe even not just about your working with doctors or practitioners on your body, that it really is the fear of this bursting out again and wreaking havoc of your life, and the pain of managing it down every single day. My work is to help you get congruent with your life, to no longer have to keep the lid on everything, so you no longer have to fear that it's going to burst out and ruin your life. This isn't just about managing your anxiety. It isn't just about, it isn't about meds for panic attacks. It's about having a different relationship to your life, so you no longer have to fear the blowups and no longer have to live alone in the isolation of keeping everything down and hidden.
Cool. Beautiful. Thank you so much.
You got it. Good. All right, my friends. This has been a blast. Hey, Dad. I decided to keep going, so hope that's cool with you.
Oh man, Jeffrey, that was a masterclass on a lot of things. You have a touch with this work that I've really, really rarely seen in terms of helping get right to the heart of things. It's extraordinary to watch. Ladies and gentlemen, all of this could be yours. thecourageousmessenger.com. You can check it out. And of course, this is scratching the surface. That's one of the things I was really struck by as we listened is, we're barely getting the top of this. He's skimming the cream, some of the cream off the top, and there's so much more. So please go check out his work. I would urge you to, if you're really struggling around niche and message. Jeffrey, thank you for taking so much time, 2 hours. This was just incredibly generous of you.
It was a blast, man. I love your people. I love you. Anything I can do to support you guys, happy to do it. Here, I'll put this in chat again. There's my stuff. I guess I would just end on this. We need your voices. And not just your voices, but the truth of the energy behind your voices in the world, because that's what moves things in this world. So with that, all my love, I'm going to run. Have a great weekend, everybody. Tad, thanks, brother. Take care, all. Bye-bye.